do 5 lectures during the year in September, November, January, March, and May. Our January lecture will be on the possibility of wind power in Missoula, so we encourage you to check that one out also. It will be the third Thursday, I think, in January. Yeah. And tonight we have with us Helen Atthowe from the County Extension Service. She also has her own organic food business, and she's going to talk to us about local sustainable agriculture and going beyond organics. Before I get her started, I would like to take a minute to thank our sponsors for this evening. Tipu's was kind enough to provide the food for us tonight. Big Sky Brewing provided our beer, and Fungal Jungle provided one of our door prizes. MCAT, as always, has donated the space here and the taping facilities, so that's a great assistance to us, so we can get this out. It will be shown on air later on, so you guys will all get to see it again. If you fall asleep in the middle because it's so late at night or whatever, you can catch up with it again later. Helen is a wonderful speaker, so I know you're not going to be tempted to, but you never know. Helen has been, I've known Helen almost since I first got here in Missoula, and she's been an inspiration on a number of levels to the sustainable ag community, the agriculture community in general. And she is part of a new organization in the area called the Montana Sustainable Growers Union, and they are trying to take agriculture past organics and on into more sustainable concerns. And so Helen tonight is going to describe some of what the union is doing and also give us a view at some of the local growers who are trying to go past organics and on into sustainability. So I'll give the floor to Helen.
Thank you. I guess I'm supposed to use this, but you didn't have to use one, so do I really have to use this? I have to use this. They're making faces at me back there. Well, the Montana Sustainable Growers Union, is that in focus? Can you see that? Because it's not in focus to me. No. You know, I'm going to just take a second and focus it. I thought it was just me that an old eye, but oh, actually, I can't focus it. If it were mine, I could. There we go. Apparently, the powers that be have heard. And it's just been focused from above. So, Montanans, and especially Montana farmers, are a bunch of rugged individualists. So to have us get together and concur on anything is remarkable. It took us basically most of the winter to agree on this. So we're very young in our coming together, but it's exciting because we have all been trying to make our businesses work and trying to be very sustainable in our own businesses, but now we're reaching out and trying to do it as a group. And one of the impetus for that was the new National Organic Certification Program, the NOP, which I will talk about later. What I'd like to do is talk about what we're doing and then talk about why we're doing it, why we have moved to this other way of certifying, so to speak, rather than being members entirely of just the National Organic Program. And then I'm going to give you an example because I got my email from Susan today too, and I saw what I was supposed to be talking about. So I thought I would do that indeed, and I have put in some examples of some of the alternative beyond organic things that we're doing. And because nobody would give me photographs of their farms, mainly you're going to get the conservation agriculture or the agroecology work, blending wild spaces and agriculture that I do on my farm. So let's start with what Montana Sustainable Growers Union is doing. Basically, our focus is local production. We want to produce local food. We want to make this photograph go over to the other side of the screen a little more. I don't know if, Joel, you can do that, but we're missing some of the words. Or not. He's shaking his hands at me. It's okay, I know what was written up there. Actually, I handed out brochures. Did everybody get those brochures? They didn't. We have a little pamphlet that also took us all winter to agree upon the wording of our pledges and what we believe in. And here it is. And so basically that's what I'm going to go through. So if I can't read that, I can always read it here. So what we want to do is develop a trust relationship with our customers rather than sending food miles and miles across country using lots of petrochemicals to sell to customers that we never meet. We want to know our customers and perfectly, and we want them to know us as well. So that's the first thing. And then we want to manage our farms in a particular way so that we have dialogue with our customers. If our customers are really excited about birds, for example, but also want healthy food, is there a way that we can encourage birds and have healthy food? We want to be able to have that kind of dialogue and trust. He's going to hate me because I have words on this side now. And I don't know if I need to point out who these people are sitting in the front row, but these are part of the social side of agriculture. What we want to do to develop this trust with our community and the people that buy our vegetables is to try, let's try and go back here, is to try and create methods for ecologically healthy farms, and in so doing, develop a whole healthy community and healthy food. So one of the things that I'm doing on my farm is to encourage a connection between the urban and the agriculture. I live an hour away. Most of the people that are my customers live here in Missoula. I need a lot of help at certain times of the season, and my wonderful eco-village members want to live in town because they want to walk to work and they want to do all the environmentally sustainable things. So they come out and help me work, and then they come and glean at the end of the season. So they all have gardens of their own and they all produce their own vegetables, but the stuff that fills the freezer and our community root cellar that's on my farm is the gleaning stuff. So here we have dogs and people and children gleaning the broccoli at the end for broccoli freezing. And I bet there's still that broccoli in the freezer, huh? I bet so. Good. All right. So the other thing, I must be doing that. The other thing that we're doing is to encourage people to dialogue with us on the farms, not just meet us in town, but to come out and actually tour the farms, and we'll answer questions. So this is a farm tour that I did this summer at my place. And in this dialogue with ourselves, members of Homegrown, the other farmers, and with our public, we've come up with a pledge, what we say we're going to do and what we're going to live up to. So it's a kind of certification. And in fact, we have other farmers visit our farms to see what we're doing and dialogue with it. It's not quite the policing that's done in the organic certification program because it's a local thing and because it's Montana, and we just sort of do it a little less formally here in western Montana. So here's what we've pledged to as Homegrown. We are going to grow our crops without the use of fungicides, herbicides, insecticides, any synthetic fertilizers. So our crops, fields, and our livestock are all going to be managed with things like biological control. And I'm kind of an insect nerd, as you can tell, so I have photographs from my farm of the biological control going on. Here we have a predaceous stink bug taking out those worms that make big holes in broccoli and cabbage. That photograph's not very good, but there are about 50 ladybug larvae on that pepper, and this is my favorite photograph. Here we have a parasitic wasp landing on that worm. She's laying her eggs in it. The eggs are going to hatch and eat their way out, just like Invasion of the Body Snatchers. So that's the kind of thing that we're relying on rather than using any kind of spraying, even those that are organically certified or the insecticides that are botanically made available, meaning made from plants. We're trying to move towards an ecological management of our agro-ecosystems or our agricultural production systems where we encourage habitat for beneficials and they come. Okay. Yeah. Most of the insects are native. I don't think any of us are actually releasing any insects, but that is something that's done in biological control, is to release non-natives. All of those I threw up there are native. Okay, so the next pledge, besides not using any of the synthetics, is that we want to care for our soil, water, and air. You know, you're doing that. I've suddenly realized this isn't me.
I'm trying not to.
So we're trying to manage our resources because we love our resources in Western Montana. That's why we're living here. If we weren't, we would farm in California where it's a lot easier. So we're trying to take care of our soil, water, and our air, doing things such as cover crops. Here's a living mulch in between our vegetable rows. Living mulch meaning instead of just putting straw down, we have something that's actually living. And I'll talk more about that later. We also have cover crops or green manures, meaning that we're growing our own fertilizer, so to speak. Crop rotations, meaning that you grow different crops in the same place different years so you don't have buildup of insects and of diseases. And crop diversity so that we don't have what's called a monoculture or just one plant growing. Because if you're an insect and you really like one particular thing, where is it easier to find that thing? Where you have acres and acres of it, or where you have to search out that particular plant you like best among several different other varieties of crop? The monoculture or the diversity? Diversity, exactly. So we're going for diversity. We're going with perennial pasture so we don't disturb the soil as much, and buffer strips so we have areas that are perennial between our cropping systems and things like waterways. Those are some of the conservation methods and techniques that we're using and that we're pledging ourselves to as a group. We also are pledging not to use any chemically treated or genetically engineered seed. That's kind of a no-brainer. It's really important to our customers. It's important to us. So we're trying to use only organically, locally, or regionally produced and sustainably produced seed. So we're trying to mostly grow our own seed is what most of us are doing, but we also are trying to get seed regionally as well. Several of us have livestock, and of course, humane treatment of livestock is another thing that's really important for us to pledge to. So no hormones or antibiotic-laced feeds. Making sure, this seems like a simple thing, but you'd be surprised, making sure that our livestock gets to be out in the sunlight and the open air and has access to pasture most of the time, consistent access. And then the other thing that livestock producers are trying to do as part of our homegrown group is to either raise their own feed or purchase sustainable or organic, locally produced feed for our animals rather than carting large amounts of feed all across the country to feed it to them. By the way, these sheep right here are not from our group. They could be. These are Becky Weed's sheep, and she goes even farther beyond organic to what is called predator-friendly wool. So she gets a premium on her wool because no predators, no wolves, no coyotes are killed on her place. Kind of an exciting alternative. Those sheep are the cleanup crew at my farm. The last thing, or close to the last thing that we pledge to do as part of our homegrown group is to make sure that we're hygienic, that we are harvesting in a way that everything's clean, which our customers are very happy about. I find that my customers, for some unknown reason, are not as much entomology or insect nerds as I am, and when I'm excitedly showing them the biological control in their salad mix, and it's the larva of a syrphid fly, all they see is maggot. And they just can't seem to get past that. So we wash our things well, we use potable water, and storage facilities are clean. All of that is something that we've pledged to as well. Can you see that? For me, that looks very, very hazy, but again, it's probably where I am. This is what I'm most interested in, and I didn't have to hold my breath until I turned blue to get this into our pledge. Everybody else was excited about this too. One of the other things that we really want to do, which is going beyond organic is to enhance our native areas, to provide areas for native plants and native species as well. And that I think is a really important aspect of Western Montana, and particularly the Missoula Five Valleys area. So this is a native area on my farm, and all of us are working really hard to become better land stewards and implement more and more conservation techniques into our farms every year. On the other side, we're also working really hard to be socially active and to think about the social justice issue. So we're really trying to buy locally, sell locally, and encourage people to do that. And of course, I'm preaching to the choir here. That's something that the Sustainable Business Council can tell me about. But that's one of the important parts of our pledge that is a little different from the National Organic Program. We also, of course, support the greater organic community, and we advocate for the ideals in this pledge and in the National Organic Program pledge as well. Most of us are old-timers and remember when there wasn't a National Organic Program, when we were all outcasts for using the O word. And so all of us believe very strongly in organic. The Homegrown Project is just to go beyond, because we're Montana and we can't ever do anything that the federal folks tell us that we have to do. We also are trying to work among ourselves. Again, when I started, I said that it took us all winter just to get our logo and agree on that. We're getting together and talking for the first time about our farming practices. And it's very good, and we haven't even had to have a mediator yet, although I know one, and I could call him at any time. Nobody has fought. We haven't had any angry argument. Well, nobody has been injured in any of our arguments about trying to become better farmers. It's really a lovely way. When we talk about having trust with our customers, we're developing trust among all the farmers as well. So we're having these farm workshops. This is one where I presented our no-till, organic no-till data, and we were looking at some of our soils research. And we had a great turnout, and everybody was excited. And we're going to have more of those winter meetings to talk about how we can improve upon our techniques. Because it's really easy, isn't it? You guys are business people, to find something that works and to just keep doing what works, and not to push the envelope environmentally and try to become more and more sustainable in our approaches. And so as a group, it's kind of like Sustainable Farmers Anonymous. We admit what we're not doing well, and we try to push farther. So the last part of our pledge is that we are owner-operators. There's very few big corporations farming organically in Western Montana. That's a joke, there's none. It's us, we're all small farmers, and we're open to any time people want to come out and visit to give us a call. So I wanted to talk about some of our farmers here. This is Lifeline Farm transplanting lettuce with the kids, being very helpful. This is Homestead Organics down in Hamilton. This is Your Organic with a very interesting cover crop system there in Victor. And I didn't have a picture of Clark Fork Organic, so I put the Peas Farm in because Josh is involved with that farm as well. So you have a list of the farmers in the brochure. If there's anything you want to know from any of those farmers about what they do, and their version of how long it took to come up with the pledge, you can give them a call because all of their contact information is right there. So that's basically who Homegrown is, what we're doing, why it's important to us. Now I'm going to tackle that sort of less easy topic of why we're not sticking with organic certification. And some of us are. Some of us are staying in organic certification as well, and some people are not doing that. Some people are too small, really, to justify the cost of organic certification. Others of us have been in the organic certification program since it started, since the National Organic Program started, and the main reason that we felt that we needed this alternative pledge or this other group, besides the fact that we wanted to work together and encourage one another to move more in a sustainable direction, is that the National Organic Program, or the NOP, is a national federal program. And so the standards are focused on a national level. And what does that mean when you have federally, nationally developed standards?
We're here to help you.
There is that. We're here to help you. But are they focused on microclimates or even regional climates? It's very difficult to do that when you do something at a federal level. So, for example, here's one organic farm in Arizona. It's a large organic broccoli farm. And this is certified, but it wasn't exactly what fit into our small-scale farming. We don't have acres and acres and acres. We don't have a long enough growing season to have acres and acres and acres of broccoli. So that's a little different. This is one of my favorite farms in the world. This is a 300-family CSA, or Community Supported Agriculture, farm out in Santa Cruz. And they're very environmentally sound, very exciting, and they make the prices that the people pay for their vegetables would make Montanans choke. We'll just put it that way. So the question is, why a local program? And the reasons are that we have different challenges in western Montana. Number one, you may have noticed that people in western Montana don't seem to make as much money as folks in Santa Cruz. Although it does seem like our houses are getting to be worth as much here as they are in Santa Cruz. But seriously, there's a different financial, economic climate here. There's also a very different biologic climate. It's so dry here. We have these high soil pHs, temperatures extremes, and cold, cold springs, which makes it a different challenge for organic farmers to make nutrients available to their crops. And we have a really short growing season. So here's our climate. It's very different in terms of the challenges from Central California. That's one of the main reasons that we thought a local program would make more sense. The other thing is that going beyond organic, we could look at some of the sustainability things that were most important to us. And one of those is conservation and efficiency of energy. So some folks are starting to look at raising their own power source. Biodiesel. We have research up at the Creston Ag Experiment Station in Flathead County looking at camelina. And several people are hoping to be able to grow camelina and actually do some biodiesel production for the area, for their farms. So that is something that would not fit well into a national organic program. We're also working at conservation and efficiency with the buildings and the equipment on our farms. This is my very exciting new off-the-grid greenhouse with recycled materials. This greenhouse has no cooling system in it at all, and there were plants in it all summer, which I'm so thrilled about. We're going to see how we make it through the winter with no heating source, but with exciting design and all of those windows and windows on the side that open up so that the cool air comes in and then rises up and there's a chimney effect. Yeah.
How would it work to have a heat compost in that?
Yeah.
It looks like they would keep each other warm.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea, and that has been tried. I can't remember the name of the fellow. Shoot. When I was young, 100 years ago, when I was at the New Alchemy Institute in Massachusetts, there were people that were working with that kind of heating approach. And we weren't really able to make it work for a large commercial greenhouse like this, but I think there's possibilities.
For the film, you might want to repeat the question.
The,
About-
the question was composting. What about a composting facility within the greenhouse to generate heat?
And vice versa. Because compost, when it gets too cold, they stop. generating.
Right, yes, exactly. And so you would move the compost out when it would. Cooling, actually, we've got figured out. Cooling's not an issue. What's going to be an issue is figuring out how to have the heat be maintained at a commercial level. And we're still working on that. And any ideas that you have, I've got my new engineer friend working on this, and hopefully he will figure it out. But all the help we can get is needed. Tim's already tried to help us figure out a curtain about a third of the way up that we can close at night. So anyway, trying to do those kinds of things. And then particularly in western Montana, beyond organic means that we're really working to focus on the small-scale family farm. This is Patty Fialkowitz, Fialke Farm, and you can see that her harvesting technique is a little different than some of the folks that were harvesting that monoculture of broccoli. So the small-scale family farm is not something that's addressed in the National Organic Program, and it's something that we're really committed to, and we know that our customers are as well. So that's an explanation of why Homegrown is trying to come up with its alternative pledge. Now I thought I would give you my story, why I'm going beyond organic. Do you want the story? I could give you the science, or I could tell you the story about red peppers the size of small pumpkins and Wile E. Coyote. All right, you've talked me into it. So my goal growing up in western Montana, then going away to graduate school, and wanting to come back here was because the wild spaces call me. But I also want to do this very agrarian, agricultural thing. So how can you bring those two seemingly disparate things together? Wild space, agriculture. Do you think it's possible?
Mm-hmm.
Well, an optimistic group. My goodness. There have been others in my life who have said that it wasn't possible. My botanist friend said that I was stealing water from dicky birds upstream and that my farm is a sacrifice zone. So I've tried for the last 10 years to try and make the farm.
You kind of got to think about that water issue.
We do have to think about a water issue in the Burnt Fork was the comment. Yes, we do. So, all right, so how can we do this? Well, in 1992, we began experimenting with reduced tillage, cutting back on tillage, conservation irrigation, so we would use less water, in this case drip irrigation, and increasing in-field diversity. So we really got good at increasing the biodiversity around the field, but how could we avoid all that bare soil in between our vegetable crops? And why do farmers have all that bare soil in between their crops?
So they can walk.
So we can walk. Yeah, but you know, we're more agile than that. We're pretty flexible. We didn't need all that stuff to walk. We're in pretty good shape. There's another reason. What is it, do you suppose?
Skiing,
And why do we do that? Why do we disc and plow?
keep the weeds down,
Weeds.
conserve moisture.
Yeah, the moisture one is one to look at. That's a good point. But definitely we know that we weed and we get rid of competition so that our crops grow bigger and better, right? So can we have good crops? Can we be sustainable in an economic way and still reduce our tillage? What do you think?
Cover crop.
Cover crop. You think we could do a cover crop?
Why not?
Well, how about a legume living mulch, which is basically a fancy way of saying a cover crop. So we tried to do that. And what happened is that created habitat for beneficial insects. So we have our yellow sweet clover island that was planted the previous year, blooming and providing pollen and nectar sources for all those beneficial insects that we were looking at earlier. And in fact, as a result, we saw an increase in our predator and parasite activity. So here, on just one pepper leaf, randomly turned over in the field. No, I had to look for it. But still, one pepper leaf, we found aphids, and we find the sessodomyid fly larva chomping down on an aphid. And do you see that sort of popcorn-looking thing over there? That's an aphid who's been eaten from the inside out. As I told you, the invasion of the body snatchers. How cool is that? And that's all going on because we provided habitat for the beneficial insects. We've also provided habitat for pollinators, and so we saw an increased yield because we had increased fruit set. We also created habitat for new predators such as birds. Notice what that bluebird's got in his mouth? That would be a cabbage worm. As we went on over the years, we became just profligate in our diversity, and we decided, why mow down the broccoli? Just let it stay out there and be a nice pollen and nectar source. You can see those yellow flowers in the corner of that photo, and then let it go to seed. And once it went to seed, the chipping sparrows moved in. They thought the seed was wonderful, and the whole place was buzzing and chirping. So our living mulch plus our broccoli residue provided habitat for insects, birds, and voles. I must tell you, Tim and Marta are smiling because they know what the voles do. The voles chew on the crops. It's true, they do. But because of the voles, we had other things move in, like snakes and raptors, hawks, and I don't think I have my coyote picture in here, but in the DVD that I was working on before here, you probably heard us screeching back there. We have this great sequence of Wile E. Coyote mousing or voling, and there's a great photo of Wile E. catching the vole and chomping it down in 2 bites. So, create habitat and they will come. We had no idea what that meant until the coyotes started coming. We also found improved habitat for beneficial soil microbes. So we started seeing management of disease by other biological, fungal, and bacterial warfare, so to speak. That we created diversity so that other organisms would be at home, and thus the disease organisms didn't get out of control. Very excitingly, what can I say? Some people are counters and some people aren't counters, and we're counters. So we've been looking at our soil fertility since 1993, and we have seen an incredible increase in soil fertility and things like soil organic matter. And this reason that soil organic matter is so exciting, besides the fact that all my professors in graduate school told me it couldn't be done, is that increase in soil organic matter means better water holding capacity and reduced irrigation. So we've been able to cut back our water use. Not enough yet. We're still stealing water from the dicky birds upstream, but not so much. More dicky birds are living because we're using less water. Actually, I'm not sure if that's true, but we are using less water. We've also seen a nice sustainable economic advantage in that we've actually seen improved quality of our produce as the soil fertility has gone up. And we've seen a balance of our soil nutrients so that we have improved cold tolerance. Those are red peppers that are about 1 foot long being picked after one of our first snows in October. But was that enough? Absolutely not. Could we do better? More conservation, more sustainability? What do you think? Well, and Tim and Marta thought so, and of course they were coming out. We had to live up to their expectations, and now we have this homegrown group, and we have to live up to all of the possibilities that we're talking about. So in 2004, we were rotating. Remember, we talked about our pledge to rotate crops, right? We rotated to a new field. And it's a field that had been in pasture for 50 years, so we didn't want to disturb it too much. How do we go from that pasture to that production level we were just showing you without much disturbance?
Add stuff on the soil rather than dig up.
We could add stuff on the soil rather than digging up, and that's kind of where we went. We did what we call sheep tillage. And my wonderful neighbor, who needed to rotate his sheep out of his pasture so that he could diminish parasite buildup in his pastures, moves his sheep to my pastures every summer and fall. So we had 600 sheep on 6 acres for about a month. Can you imagine what that did? It basically set back all of the vegetation. So we still had that root mass. We hadn't disturbed that. But we've really slowed up the green growing portion. And then I wish we could have afforded to mulch the whole 6 acres, but we couldn't figure out how to do that. Maybe the next field will do that. But what we did is we went through and did minimum tillage. You can still see quite a bit of residue and sod out there. We did it very quickly, and then we went in and planted a cover crop, something to cover it as quickly as possible, and we did a grass and clover mix. We wanted plants from different functional groups, meaning they had different life cycles and different ways that they filled up an area so that they would not leave any extra space for those sneaky weeds to get in. And I don't know if you can see that, but Tim and Marta can tell you there were no weeds. Kevin, you've been out there. You can tell them. There are just no weeds. It was beautiful. It looked like that field in The Wizard of Oz, you know, just all one gorgeous green thing. I didn't want to plant there. I just wanted to look at it for years. But we decided that we would plant in it. We left it over the winter, and it was nice because, look, no bare soil over the winter. So we're providing habitat for soil microbes and for predators to remain there, to have a safe place for the winter. Oh, I forgot to mention the native shrubs. We also, in this new field, put in a 600-foot row of native fruiting shrubs, elderberry, ribes, which is golden currant, as a food source for our birds who we found are good beneficial insect predators. Excuse me, they're good beneficial predators of insects. That's the correct way of saying that. So we had that. We also maintained the back 15 acres in pasture that's left ungrazed until late in the year, the end of August, early September, so that our grass nesters, this is not a great picture, but everybody recognize this guy? Okay, so it's a bad picture. Very yellow chest, meadowlark, and there's the meadowlark babies out there in the grass. So we let our grass nesters go through their life cycle, and then we go out and graze the back 15 acres. We've left wildlife corridors around this new field. Instead of going fence to fence, there's an area so that we don't fight with deer and elk. They can go around. And you know, it's an 8-foot deer fence. It would be tough for them to get over. But they seem to be relatively happy to go around, although sometimes when that green clover looks so much better than anything else, you can just see them licking their lips and looking over the fence. But we have the wildlife corridors, and we have these restored, what I call riparian areas. It's not really a riparian area, but we have these irrigation ditches that crisscross Montana, comes from the mountain lakes and goes all the way down to the river. It's a lovely corridor for wildlife to travel because water is, as we know in Montana, a vital part of any organism's survival. So why not, if we have these man-made or human-created irrigation riparian areas, why not have natives along them? So we've done all this restored area, and this is Chrysothamnus nauseosus, which is rubber rabbit brush, and you can see that we have angle-wing butterflies on them, and that insect up there is a native syrphid fly. And then this spring, we decided, we had this beautiful clover. There were no weeds. let's try and do real minimum tillage, and we tried some no-till experiments. So what we did is we laid down compost, but only where we were going to have beds. So do you see the dark areas and the green areas? The green area is the living mulch that is left undisturbed. The composted area, the dark area, is where we're going to have the beds, where we're going to actually put the crop in. And then we went through with a new piece of equipment I got this year, which is a one-shank chisel plow. You know, what we usually have is these big old monster chisel plows, and we need big tractors to pull them. But if you're not going to till up the whole field, we just went through with the one. And you can see some brown there, that would be soil, but you see a lot of green. That would be the clover disturbed, but have we killed that clover? I think not. No, that clover's pretty tolerant of that. But we set it back quite a bit. In the other, well, let me just finish with what we did in some, boy, can people see that? Because I'm having a really hard time seeing it. Okay, I must be just too close. Some of the beds we just left with that chisel plowing, and we planted right into them. Some of them, like the tomatoes and the peppers, we needed to warm the soil up and warm those soil microbes up so they could start cycling the nutrients. So we laid down black plastic, and we will go to environmental hell for black plastic, but we've tried some other alternatives. They haven't worked out as well yet, but there's always room for improvement. So one of those rooms for improvement is we wanted to see if we could do absolute no-till. So we took that lovely green clover, and we took the flamer, our infrared propane flamer from Canada that works kind of like an iron. It just goes over the clover and burns it. So we burned back the top, and then we took the transplanter and transplanted right into the clover. So do you think that's going to work? Right into the... Marta looks concerned. We were very concerned for a long time because this is what it looked like. It was pretty wild. Can you see the Brussels sprouts in there? They're there. But when they finally got to be taller than the clover, we had a ceremony, and my wonderful students who humor me all the time, either that or they're afraid of me, were willing to put on robes for the Ascension of Brussels Sprouts ceremony. And then we actually have gotten a crop. I have to tell you that the yield was much lower than it would have been had we not done the no-till. We still have to tweak this system. But we actually got a crop. Isn't that exciting? And we saw increased diversity and decreased disturbance. As a result of both of those, we saw even more diversity of insect pests. Here's some nerdy graphs, but it shows all the different species of beneficial insects that we measured all summer. And when I say we, that would be Ethan Smith, one of the students who's getting his master's in the environmental studies program, did all this work very admirably. Ethan did such a super job. Anyway, so he measured for 20 weeks. He went through withdrawal when he stopped coming out to the farm every week, was out there with his little net, and we were able to get these kinds of graphs and see what this habitat, all this diversity that we have put into the system, what the benefits were. Oh, and there's Wile E. Coyote. So not only did we have the normal predators, just more numbers of them, we got this young group of coyotes moving in. And this is an 8-foot deer fence in woven wire, so I'm not really even sure how he gets in there. But he's not even worried about us. We can be about 30 foot away, and he does his voling. And there he is, getting ready to pounce, and there he is chomping down on the vole. And that's it. That's the story of our attempt to go beyond organic at my farm. Comments? Questions? Volunteers?
You mentioned looking for a plastic that might be...
I'm going to make you speak into this.
You mentioned looking for a plastic that might be biodegradable or otherwise environmentally sound. I visited a farm in Missouri, and they have the humanure set up. And what they do is they've got the 5-gallon bucket that they drop everything into which is normal. But what was interesting is they actually had a plastic liner in the bucket, but it wasn't really plastic. It was some kind of biodegradable material that looks and functions just like plastic. They order it from somewhere in Vermont.
Starch based?
It could be. In any case, of course, when they're done, they just wrap up the plastic, take the whole lot out of the bucket, and add it to the compost pile.
Wow.
So you might want to. I just thought you might want to look out for something like that.
I will look into that. That sounds very interesting. There are biodegradable, quote unquote, plastics. They are not allowed in the National Organic Program. And we are trying with our homegrown group to follow what's allowed in the NOP. So we would not go with the plastic that's not biodegradable. I wouldn't want to use it, or that's biodegradable, but it degrades down to chemicals that we don't know what they are. So we're not doing that. But what we did test this year, and I must say I wasn't completely happy with it, is something made in Australia called an eco cover. And the eco covers I would really recommend for people's gardens, actually, are hard to work with. You can't use equipment to put them down. They're a thick paper product, and it lasted all season. I'm not sure it'll warm the soil as much, but it lasted all season. We're going to look next year at a thinner eco cover that may actually be applied with my equipment. Any other ideas of how we can be more sustainable? Well then. Oops. Here you go. I don't know who to do first. Let's go with you first.
I have an easy question. How can we as a community have more access to local grown foods in the off season?
That's a really good question. Ooh, boy, that's an excellent question. What I do, I don't eat any vegetables or fruits except when I go to people's house for dinner or when and even then sometimes I don't have to. I can still have my own stuff. I eat only my own stuff year round, but we have a lot of storage vegetables, onions, potatoes, cabbage, all the winter squashes, carrots, beets. It goes on and on. It's not maybe the vegetables that we would all want or that we've grown accustomed to, but it's the kind of thing that I grew up with and my grandparents and great-grandparents did, so it's not an issue to me. And then freezing and canning. So that's what I do. There is the greenhouse option. I have to tell you that I'm going to work really hard with our greenhouse to see what we can get away with. I think we could have been growing greenhouse greens, for example, still. And actually I am at my place. And I'm sure others are. That could be done. There are these walk-in cold frames. They have a lot of those in Europe, and in Oregon they're starting to get in some of the European models. And people can probably extend the season a couple of months on either end. In terms of the greenhouse itself, if you're talking about things that really can't stand cold temperatures, meaning something around 30, 25 to 30 degrees Fahrenheit, I think that the amount of energy needed to do that in Montana would be rough. So my idea would be that we all learn to go back to storage vegetables and canning and drying and freezing. I'm going to just let him, and then we'll go back to you.
For your greenhouse, have you looked at any options for geoannualized heat storage? Yeah. And is that a solution for the thing we're just talking about for more year-round heating in an environmentally sound way for Montana greenhouses?
Yes. Absolutely, and you're way out of my biological realm now, but my friend who actually did well in physics in college and graduate school, and who is an engineer, we dug down deeply when we did the greenhouse, so we have this area to work with. And so we're trying to get as much thermal gain as we can, and you're probably talking about much fancier systems. because you probably know what you're talking about. But yeah, it's all about mass. So what we're doing is going with about a foot of stone, and then the plants will be right on the stone rather than on tables. And I still am not sure we can totally get away with it, but certainly that's going to help.
Well, I actually had a comment and then a question. And speaking of cabbage, it's a good idea to learn how to make sauerkraut.
There you go.
I've done it. It's not too hard to learn. You can do it in 5-gallon buckets, and it'll last for months. But my question is, you mentioned students. Can you tell us more about how you're? Now, I'm a woofer. I've done woofing.
Workers on organic farms.
Yeah, worldwide opportunities on organic farms, or willing workers on organic farms, and it's a great way to travel if you're not familiar with it. Go to www.oof.org or woofusa.org, and it's a great way to travel all over the world and here in America. But what about you?
Well, in this very room before you, we have 3 willing workers on organic farm. We have Tim and Marta who come out and work, although they didn't come out very much this spring, and they were ostracized as a result. Kevin, however, has also planted, and you learn a lot about people by their planting methods. We have learned all kinds of things about our friends that we didn't know. We have the stackers and we have the tossers. I won't tell you in this room who's a stacker and who's a tosser, but we've learned quite a bit, and it's so much fun. So, yeah, that's part of connecting with the urban area that we've done, is to try to have that gleaning community root cellar project. I have my own root cellar, and then I live on a very old farm, so that there was an old dairy root cellar, and we fixed that up so that now it's a community root cellar, and people help sit on the transplanter, help us do the jobs that take a number of people to do, and then come out and glean. So that's one thing we do. And then for students, I do a lot of research on my farm because we're trying to do all of these new beyond organic things. So I have students from the University of Montana. I also teach a Master Gardener course, and my Master Gardeners come out to learn and help. And we do write research projects and try to get grant money, and then that pays the students to do some of the work, and some of them actually get degrees doing it. Do Tim and Marta and Kevin want to comment on their version of what happens at the farm? They're trying to pretend that they don't know who they are.
I was totally amazed. I'd never really experienced how they do it on organic farms, and I've just done small gardening. So it was extremely interesting and way more fun than I thought it would be, and mostly just so much learning. It's amazing, and it was fun to glean at the end of the season. It's great.
Yeah.
Want to thank you all for joining us tonight for the Sustainable Business Council's November edition of our Sustainability Lecture Series. Look for our next lecture in January, either the second or third Thursday. I'd have to have the calendar with me to know for sure. There'll be announcements around town about it, and on our website as well. Our website is www.sustainablebusinesscouncil.org. Please go out there and check out our members. We have over 100 now who are working on sustainability features around Missoula, and we'd appreciate your taking your business to them. Thank you.